Everything exploded didn't start with sirens, it started with a sound like a squadron of mutant mosquitoes. 4 police drones descended over my house just as I was on a video call with the state attorney's office, exposing 3 years of HOA fraud. I didn't realize it yet, but I was about to become the headline of my own neighborhood scandal. Through my window, I spotted my wife, Heather, shielding her eyes against the sun while black drones formed a perfect diamond above our roof, each flashing red. One hovered above my Harley, my gleaming 1998 Fatboy, the pride of my weekends. My gut tightened. Then, the real police cars arrived, sirens wailing, lights flashing madly across manicured lawns. The neighborhood froze like a movie set mid-scene. "What in the world?" I muttered. Davies, the investigator on the line, asked, "Sir, are you still there?" Before I could reply, Uncle Jimmy texted me, "What did you do?" with a link to a live stream. I tapped it, and my blood ran cold. The feed came from the HOA president herself, Karen Lance. Title: Pray for my son Trevor, victim of neighbor's cruelty. On camera, Karen's teenage son, Trevor, was sprawled on my lawn, pretending to writhe in agony, clutching a can of Monster like it was holy water. A bent butter knife sparkled beside him, and right next to my Harley's ignition, an ugly scratch. Replaying the footage showed him jamming the knife into the fuel tank like a clueless car thief. My Harley had been attacked by Karen's son, while I was live with the state attorney exposing Karen's embezzlement. And now the police were here, because of her 911 call accusing me of harassing her boy's youthful desires. Whatever that meant. When Davies finally spoke again, his tone had changed. "I'm watching," he said smoothly. "Tell me, do your security cameras cover your driveway?" I smiled through the fury. "Oh, yes. All in 4K. Karen thought she was calling the cops to silence me. Instead, she'd just given the state attorney front row seats to her felony performance. To understand this circus, you have to know Karen Lance. Picture pastel blouses, a clipboard, and the moral flexibility of a Bond villain. When we first moved into Eagle's Landing, Heather saw her as an enthusiastic organizer. I saw her as a ticking time bomb with HOA bylaws for shrapnel. It started small, a violation notice for Heather's painted birdhouse. Unauthorized decorative structure, $50 fine. Then came the complaints about my Harley ruining property values. Every ticket, every accusation, it was less about neighborhood harmony and more about power. She didn't serve the community. She reigned over it. But I had something she didn't, a stubborn streak and a profession tailor-made for revenge. I'm a forensic accountant. Numbers talk to me. She thought she could bury me in fines and paperwork. So I used her weapon against her. I formally requested 3 years of HOA financials. She stalled, then relented with a smile as fake as her highlights. Inside that manila envelope, a treasure chest of crime, kickbacks from landscaping firms, phantom consulting contracts, and missing funds that belonged to all of us. It wasn't pettiness, it was theft. That's when I built my case. Spreadsheets. Proof. An airtight file destined for the state attorney's office. My plan was simple, take her down legally and quietly. What I didn't know was that Karen, in a storm of entitlement, was planning her own masterpiece of manipulation. Her teenage son wanted my Harley. She promised him a test ride someday, then convinced herself the HOA bylaws entitled him to one. When I caught him snooping around, I installed a high-definition camera over the driveway. Because when you smell smoke in Eagle's Landing, it's probably Karen lighting the match. That camera would later record the exact evidence that turned the tables, her son's clumsy, hotwire attempt, the scratch, and her staged victim act for social media. But in that moment, as 4 police drones hovered above me, none of us knew we were about to witness the ultimate reverse Uno, a dictator caught live streaming her own downfall. The next few minutes were chaos incarnate. Police surrounded my house. Heather clung to me, terrified. Trevor pointed from the lawn, his fake tears spattering across the drone feed, as Karen narrated her fantasy, "My poor boy. That man attacked him over a motorcycle." In reality, Davies was watching in real time, recording everything. "She has no idea you're on the call with me, does she?" he said. "Not a clue." The storm broke. Davies called the local police supervisor mid-scene, introducing himself as lead counsel from the state attorney's office. Within minutes, body cams tilted, radios crackled, and one officer stopped glaring at me long enough to realize Trevor's victim performance came with a prop, a butter knife. The drones lifted off. Karen's smile slipped like melting wax. She retreated inside, probably convinced she'd somehow handled it. She didn't realize her desperate lie had just become Exhibit A. For the next few days, the silence was unnerving. Then, inevitably, a new HOA citation appeared on my door. Nuisance activity, excessive police presence. She was fining me for her own false 911 call. Classic Karen. Davies told me to wait. "Let her stew," he said. "Arrogance exposes itself." He was right. Within 48 hours, local news picked up leaked footage, my footage, showing Trevor's failed heist and Karen's self-made, youthful desires, speech. The broadcast exploded across social media. Neighbors turned fast. People who'd been bullied for years shared stories, fines for lawn colors, for mailboxes too cheerful, for wreaths excessively festive. The dams burst. Outrage went viral. Cornered but still delusional, Karen announced an emergency HOA meeting to address community lies. She thought it was her comeback rally. She didn't realize it was her public execution, and every neighbor was invited to bring popcorn. The night of the meeting felt electric, like storm clouds before a lightning strike. Heather stacked sandwiches for nervous neighbors. Uncle Jimmy commanded the phones like a retired general. And I, freshly briefed by Davies, had one more secret card to play. An hour before the meeting, someone slipped an anonymous manila envelope under my door. Inside were forged documents, fake bank statements proving I had an offshore account. The account numbers were wrong, the layout sloppy. It was Karen's final, desperate attempt to flip the script. I almost laughed, until I noticed one line buried in the mess, a payment note reading, per KL authorization, Lot 17 clearing. Lot 17, the community's protected nature preserve. Karen had been trying for months to get it rezoned for the good of the HOA. Now I knew why. She wasn't just embezzling petty cash, she was preparing to sell community land for personal profit. Her counterfeit smear pile had accidentally exposed a real corruption scheme. When I told Davies, he whistled. "You just turned this into a public corruption case." So when the HOA meeting began, I came armed with truth and restraint. Karen stormed in wearing her trademark pink blouse and the confidence of a stage actress who hadn't read her reviews yet. She gave a speech about slander and disgruntled residents, then unveiled her fake evidence like it was a smoking gun. I waited. Let her dig. Then I stood. "Karen," I said calmly, "your forgery skills could use work. UBS logos don't come in Comic Sans. But thank you, because you left a note about a payment to Silver Creek Development Group, for Lot 17. Care to explain?" The color drained from her face. Before she could stammer, the clubhouse doors swung open. 2 suits entered, Arthur Davies front and center. "Karen Lance," he said, flashing a badge, "you're under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and public corruption." The room erupted. Uncle Jimmy, never one to miss a line, bellowed, "Motion for a vote of no confidence." A thunderous "aye" shook the clubhouse walls. Karen's reign collapsed faster than a folding chair at a barbecue. The meeting footage, complete with her arrest, aired on the evening news. Within days, the state attorney's office unsealed indictments for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to sell protected land. Her bored cronies and the so-called developers at Silver Creek folded like cheap wallpaper. For the first time in years, Eagle's Landing was free. A new transitional board formed, transparent and humble. Every stolen dollar was traced, every bogus fine nullified. The nature preserve was declared untouchable forever. Justice, it turned out, moves slow, but when it arrives, it doesn't just knock. It kicks the door down. Heather and I reclaimed our quiet life. The birdhouse she once painted, the one that started this whole saga, found its way back to the oak tree. She smiled softly. It looks happy there. I fired up the Harley, let the engine roar, and decided to leave the scratch by the ignition. It wasn't a blemish, it was a battle mark, proof of what happens when ordinary people stand up to small-minded tyranny. As I rolled down the newly peaceful street, I saw neighbors waving, no more fear, no clipboard dictators, just a community breathing again. The sunset glinted off the chrome, the same golden light that had once lured us to this neighborhood of supposed freedom. And maybe that's the point. Freedom isn't a promise you move into, it's something you defend. Sometimes with spreadsheets. Sometimes with patience. And sometimes, when the HOA president sends the cops to your door over a teenage bike thief, it's with a well-placed security camera and a whole lot of nerve. The road stretched out before me, open and bright. The Harley rumbled like a closing argument. I smiled, thinking of Davy's words that day, she has no idea who she's dealing with. She sure didn't. Some fights are worth every bit of noise they make.